Hello and good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are. I want to welcome you and thank you for joining us this afternoon to Ground Truth Impact, Tech for All, Diversity, Small Business Leaders discussion. Today we have a wonderful full-packed agenda. As you can see, our beautiful panelists on the screen there. This afternoon, we're going to be having a conversation not only about ground truth and location technology, but we're also going to be sharing in some of the successes and the innovations that have come out of the challenging time that is COVID and this pandemic. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about an introduction where you'll get to hear firsthand from our president and CEO, Steve McCarthy. I'll then go into talking about the power of location marketing and why it's relevant for all of your businesses out there. And then we'll hear from our talented panelists options about what they've been doing, how their businesses have succeeded, and how they found light at the end of the tunnel during this challenging time. And then we'll wrap it up with some Q&A, and then have a few closing remarks. Without further ado, I want to introduce you to ground truth. And this is not the layman term definition that you're seeing on the screen. Words like proprietary and precisely and those things, predictive, do not always fall on our intellectual palate, but the layman definition of what ground truth does as a marketing location technology firm is, we use data and technology to inform business decisions, to also drive business impact, and to drive business insights that could help small businesses, large businesses of all kinds, shapes, and sizes make smarter and wiser decisions as to how they spend their media budget and to whom they advertise their products to. So before we jump into the context of the conversation today, I'd like to invite our president and CEO, Stephen McCarthy, who'd like to share a few words about exactly what it is that we're talking about and our mission at Ground Truth Impact.
All right, thank you, Brandon. Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to join the webinar. It's good to see everyone. As a way of background, Brandon and I have been working together for, I don't know, 6 years, Brandon, something like that, quite a long time. And, I'm, as Brandon said, I'm president and CEO of Ground Truth. And here at Ground Truth, we believe it's our responsibility to lay the groundwork for positive change. And while we foundationally strive and aspire toward positive change globally, we recognize it must begin at a local level. It has to begin with us. And so earlier this year, in the wake of the killing of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement inspired protests, our leadership team called upon Ground Truth employees to an all hands to offer a space for grief and compassion. I expressed my personal sentiments toward the circumstances befalling our nation, and I offered the same for my colleagues. We shared a genuine experience from a variety of personal perspectives, from race to generational gaps to gender variance. And the reality was, we as an organizational body were very unsettled. And I personally was unsettled. As Brandon would tell you, during those days in late May, I had a difficult time sleeping, and that period had such a profound impact on me and the remainder of the company, and it did start a movement inside our company at a very local level. So in light of these conversations, I'm incredibly grateful for the devoted team of employees here at Ground Truth who have provided a framework by which we aim to enter this new era. Prioritizing inclusion and diversity within our organization, I'm proud to say that I work with people who are comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. It's my hope that, similar to our body here, these dialogues are not the end of something, but the inception of transformational change. Ground Truth Impact is an employee-driven social good initiative focused on creating sustainable change within our communities. This Tech for All initiative is the first of many designed to engage our community and enrich their understanding of digital technology by way of location. So with that, I'll kick it back to Brandon.
Thank you very kindly, Steve. And as you heard there, it is very much a part of our foundational mission. And as you begin to hear and learn more about what it is Ground Truth does and how our technology impacts business overall, what will begin to stand out to you is that we have transparency into the things such as the disparity between the impact on businesses that are run by minorities and women and people of color versus those that are not. We understand the fact that globally, not only in the United States, that wholesale, things like retail, things like shopping in general, have begun to be grabbed by those legacy brands that have the billion-dollar budgets. And they're using the exact same competitive tools that you are using as a small brand. So whether that be social media and Facebook or search marketing or Shopify for selling your t-shirts or your product and service online, these worlds have now collided. Big business, small businesses are all using the same tools. And the only real difference is whether or not you have the tools at your disposal to actually be competitive. And in order to draw this real picture, I wanted to do a little exercise with you. And as I thought about how I could share the realness of the opportunity that is using or leveraging location marketing and technology itself, I'd give you this little story of my own COVID quarantine project. So to discuss, I took on a project basically to transform my backyard. I'm sure many of you have done similar projects, whether it be painting or purchasing a pet, even adopting. But as I began to do so, I thought about how many opportunities were there for small businesses in my area that might be owned by people of color to connect with me? How many opportunities, whether it be my television, whether it be my social media feed, even the apps that I might see on my phone and my desktop, how many times did you have an occasion to actually reach and impress me as a consumer, to tell me about your service, to tell me about the status of your restaurant, right? Whether or not you could actually serve people. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be amazing if Ground Truth would take the initiative to empower some of these businesses that belong to our community, not only with the tools, but the education, and with the education, some real life examples. In this real life example where I took on this COVID quarantine project, I did searching for 3 weeks. And in the end, myself and my housemate physically went to a store to purchase a handful of items. We purchased a handful of others off of a website that would allow us to shop online and purchase things like gravel and lights, a power washer. But what was also missed were those opportunities that the mom and pop shop around the corner had to serve me meals every evening when I was ordering out, right? The opportunity for that person who actually has those cleaning services and it's run by their family to advertise their service to me. So I thought, wouldn't it be fantastic if we could educate and help share and then also disseminate the message? Could I have been persuaded by a local business? Surely. And over the course of these past 8 months since COVID has overtaken our nation and overtaken our world, at this point, we're now thinking about recovery, right? The nation is beginning to open up, schools are opening. Many of you have actually gone back to business and opened up your doors at a regular pace. But do we have a landscape now that is properly understood, not only by the consumers who are being advertised to, which also, by the way, includes all of us who are on this panel, but then also by you all as business owners? Do you understand what goes into the inputs of the technology and the resources that you are using in order to connect with your consumers? And more importantly, do you also have the transparency to relay that message to your clients to help build business and build business better? What you'll see here is a handful of the inputs that Ground Truth uses as we analyze location signals that are given off and derived from cell phones, right? We use mobile device signals in order to discover where people are, in order to serve them a timely message, depending on the context. And that context could be anything from where a person is in that given moment. It could also be where they've been over the course of the past 6 months. But we take into consideration a lot of different factors, as you see outlined in these slides, things like time of day, bad quality signals, fraudulent signals, centroids, which I'm sure many of you haven't even heard of, right? These are all of the many different inputs that go into data that I'm sure most of us are not necessarily aware of on a regular basis because it doesn't maybe touch what we do on a daily. But nevertheless, we are trusting our clients' dollars and our own dollars as marketers in these tools, in these platforms to drive business results that would change and be transformational. What you're seeing here is our blueprints. This is the layering technology that Ground Truth uses in order to determine where a place is. This is the same technology that informs where a person is when they get impressed with an ad. it also informs what audiences that person might belong to. So that myself would have been considered a person who's a DIY or a arts and crafts lovers if a company had been monitoring or attempting to get in touch with me during this time of COVID. And these are all different signals that we take into consideration: time of day, dwell time. We don't want to advertise towards a person who works in the store where you are trying to advertise, and we also don't want to waste your media. So without further ado, let us get into the panelist conversation and get to meet some of the wonderful people who've already leveraged Ground Truth's services in many different capacities, and I'll allow them to elaborate. But let's kick it off without further ado to Marina Maribel.
Hi, I'm Marina Maribel. Thanks for having me. Very excited to be here. But yeah, I'm the Director of Digital Marketing here at Roar Media. We're based out of Miami. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, so Spanish is my first language, and I ended up moving to Boston after graduation, kind of trying to live my college life up there. Went to Bentley University. Pretty much after graduation, I decided, I got the opportunity to attend school in Boston. I need to stay here. I need to take advantage of all the businesses and technology that's up there. So I ended up finding my way and starting my digital advertising career at Vistaprint. So I worked in-house on the global paid search team, where I managed about $40 million in budget across text and shopping campaigns. We pretty much had about 18 countries or so that we managed paid search campaigns for. I then realized I wanted to kind of have that agency life experience. I thought it would be really important for me and my career growth. So I ended up moving over to Digitas, which is part of Publicis Group, where I mainly worked on Victoria's Secret, managing e-commerce campaigns for them, whether it was paid search, display, paid social campaigns across the US, Canada, and Australian markets. So that was kind of before Roar. And then May 2019, I said, I'm done with the cold in Boston. I need sunny Miami in my life. And so I moved. And that's kind of when I started working at Roar. And so really at Roar, we are a digital first, full stack marketing agency, blending creativity and common sense. And, as the director of the digital marketing department, I really have been able to work with my team to strategize and implement advertising campaigns, again, paid search, display, paid social, all channels, mostly digital, but we dabble in traditional as well. And we really do try to find, the best channels and strategies for our clients ranging from malls, cities, software, cement, interior design, protein drinks, hotels. The list can go on. But I'm really excited to be here, because, Ground Truth has really been a really great channel for us. And it's not really one of the ones that you first think, right? My experience has really been in paid search, paid social, and Ground Truth really is a channel has really helped us out.
Thank you so much, Marina. And for those of you who don't understand or didn't quite catch Publicis and all the agency jargon, Marina comes from the larger agency world that services those Vistaprints in the world. Devon, please say hello to the people.
Hi, good afternoon. How's everyone doing? I love my graphic up there. I'm the founder and CEO of Blue Life Media Group. We started almost a little bit over a decade ago as a single print physical publication. And that was the wave that we rode for a very long time. However, we began to embrace digital, but we wanted to do it right. So a lot of media companies, especially independent media companies, were small. We don't have a lot of money to waste. So we needed to really understand our audience, where they were at, what they wanted, and how do we definitely engage with them digitally. And Ground Truth platforms allowed us to target neighborhoods that we think were reflective of our audience, but also measure their engagement, what their likes are, what their desires are, and apply that to our digital strategy. And definitely year over year, we've seen a 500% increase in traffic on our website from the moment we did that first analysis and platform with Ground Truth. And we've been able to put those things into our digital strategy going forward. So we see ourselves now as a full service media outlet that starts with print, but drives digital on Bombshell by Blue and bluemagazine.com.
Awesome, and that's a wonderful story, the transition from high engagement in barbershops, right, Devon, into this more so heavily based online content platform. And we'll get into that in a little bit more in just a second here. And last, but certainly not least, one of my favorite power couples, uh, Courtney and Dr. Ty Caldwell.
Hey, y'all.
Hey guys, how y'all doing? We are excited to be a part of this. I remember when Brandon first called us about it and we tried to make it work. And so, yes, we are the Caldwells, Dr. Ty and Courtney, and we're the co-founders of ShareShare. ShareShare is a B2B mobile platform that allows licensed beauty professionals across the ways, different types of professionals to rent salon and barbershop space on demand by the day. So a lot of people like to call us Hair B&B. And so we've taken that name on and we understand what it means. But just a little bit about us, our background is pretty extensive, but we're going to try to take this next few minutes to not go too far over the time, but just give you a little bit of brief understanding of who we are. I've been in the beauty and barbering industry for almost 30 years. Yeah. I've been running a successful salon and barbershop for over 2 decades. So this is my wheelhouse. This is what I know front to back, side to side and all that. I wrote a best-selling book explaining how to be successful in the beauty and style industry. I have just been elected to PBA. You guys might not know what that is, but the PBA is the Pro Beauty Association. So you have to be elected to be a part of this advisory council. And I'm so excited to be the first African-American to be a part of it. So, you know, it's one of those things where the lobbyists and the politicians, we speak for those voices that can't speak. And so when the pandemic happened, we were called non-essential. So we was able to go out there and let these politicians know why we were essential, the strategy behind getting us back to work and what it meant for us to understand the sanitary and the precautions of the industry when it came to anything that we do based on hair, skin, and nails. I also have my doctorate in professional barbering and cosmetology. So these are things that I do is pretty extensive. I know a lot of times people try to build apps or build platforms and they don't come from the industry. So I'm not just some random person that's just working this space. I speak I speak all over all over the United States and parts of the country about the industry. And one of the things I like to do is instruct people. So I like to talk about the business behind the chair. Even though I've been very successful in this industry and the art side of it, the business side of it, I think a lot of times people don't really understand. So I try to make sure I am there for the next generation, educating them, giving them an understanding. But I don't have a whole lot of background in anything else from having small jobs or whatever. I did all that stuff in high school. My entire career has been really in the beauty and barbering industry. And so this is an industry that I love today, more so than when I first started. You're figuring things out, you're getting to know yourself. But I think over the course of the years, through my falls, my setbacks, all my successes, my first book is called Mentor by Failure. All those things have allowed me to come to this point today. And I think sometimes in the journey of life, if you just stay the course, you'll figure things out. So that's been a part of my journey and I'm excited. Courtney?
That's so true. Well, speaking about location, right, the reason why it made sense for us to work with Ground Truth was because when stylists download the ShareShare app, the very first question that they are asked is, where do you want to work? And so we are location based, right? And that's super important because it's either helping a stylist get closer to their clientele so that they're not having to lose that person, or it's helping a person figure out where to build their book of business, right? So like Ty mentioned, you know, ShareShare is the first app that lets stylists rent salon space by the day in cities all over the world. We have listings now across 625 cities. And again, the location is vitally important. That's the very first thing that people think about when they come to ShareShare. That's the very first thing that people will filter through on the app. And us being able to leverage, I'll just use one example, us being able to leverage Ground Truth, where we knew that, you know, X% of our stylists were walking into a Sally's Beauty Supply, right? And being able to put, you know, a fence around that geo area and say, okay, well, if this person walks in more than, call it 3 times a week, then we know that that's probably a licensed beauty or barbering professional. So let's send this type of ad to them. I tell you, it was game changing for us. And so we continue to build along the lines of being mobile first and focusing on location first. And you're happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
That was wonderful. Please excuse me while I put my head down and take notes. Without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive in.
Let's do it.
I actually would love to start with the two of you, Courtney and Ty, and then I'll bump to Marina. Because the two of you have a very unique business in that, Ty, you mentioned the word non-essential, right? That you are, and the beauty salon industry was deemed non-essential at the onslaught of COVID-19. So those are Ty and Courtney's clients at ShearShare. And then for everyone else, Marina's clients at Roar Media would also face similar doldrums because, you know, as you might imagine, a mall, right? You also work with restaurants and then as well as shopping district, right? Which would have surely been shut down during quarantine. I'd like to start with Ty and Courtney and then bump to Marina. Talk to us about what non-essential meant for your business and how your business had to make different considerations in order for you to buy for the essential nature of the business that you serve.
I definitely think the pandemic pretty much defined what they thought non-essential was, and it's really just a gathering of people. They wanted to create safety. They wanted to create precautionary places to where people can go where they didn't have to gather. And you know, the barbershop, salons, spas, nails, massage, that's close quarters. You have to really work on people. You have to touch people. You have to breathe on people. So I think there was a big scare when everything first started because they didn't really know how to define that. And so one of the things that I think they considered non-essentials because of that, but 87 to 95% of our education is based on precautionary. We're dealing with chemicals. We're dealing with everything that's based on hair, skin, and nails to protect not only ourselves. And I tell people, we as professionals have to protect ourselves first. So we are going to secondarily, almost 1B, protect the customer. So I think that when they did that, they just did it based on the numbers, based on a consensus as when it comes to dense populations of businesses that had a lot of gatherings, like I said before. But I think that they didn't understand the real internal understanding of all the precautionary details to what it took for us to keep our clients safe and also keep ourselves safe. It wasn't like we were selling drinks at a bar. It wasn't like we were selling clothes. We were selling services. And I think that when people think about certain things, and it's a lot of it is our fault as professionals because, you know, it boils down to the business. And I think sometimes they look at the art of it and not the business. And so they made a decision based on that.
That's a perfect segue. So you would assume, right, that we being, you know, ShearShare and having listings inside salons and barbershops, and when everyone got those stay-at-home mandates, that we would have been, you know, screaming that the sky is falling, and it was for a while. But we do have to remember too that we've lived through a few things, right? We're a little bit longer in the tooth, so we remember getting through this industry with Y2K. We remember Ebola. We remember the 2007-2008 recession, and all that does is remind us that our industry is an evergreen industry that literally just bounces back. And so, as comfortable as we were, as comfortable as you could be, honestly, with business kind of coming to a standstill, we had to provide that type of encouragement and motivation to our ShearShare community. And so what that looked like was that it wasn't about let's help have you as a stylist download the app. It wasn't about that anymore. It was about how can we best serve you right now when you can't have your hands in someone's head and you still need to make money so you can feed your family. And so people would write in or they would call into our support line and say, hey, I keep hearing about this thing called PPP and EIDL, and what the heck is that? And can I get access to it? And so Ty immediately started to put pen to paper, ended up creating more than 100 business resources, things that help you grow and manage your business from behind the chair. So I'm not teaching you the next balayage or the latest clipper over comb, right? I'm helping you understand what aspects of your business could you transition to an e-commerce model, or why is it important to have a personal relationship with your banker, right? On top of that, we helped more than 125 stylists who had originally been denied for PPP actually get approved. And so we're super excited about that. And again, it all boils back down to location as well. I mean, yes, stylists are everywhere, but we were able to kind of put them in buckets by state to help them move through the PPP process a little bit faster.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I imagine Ty's placement on this new board is certainly going to be heavily centered around lobbying, right, for the industry.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
We've already had our first meeting and an introduction, and they had a actual board meeting. I'm on the advisory board. It's 24 people, but the board is consisting of 6. And they reached out to me and told me that they said my name 6 times in that meeting, and they were excited to have me a part of the board because I have insight from both sides of the marketplace, right. But also I have insight from different types of the business aspects of it too. So it's commission-based, employee-based, and independent contractors. So I just feel like there's a disproportionate amount of people in the independent side that aren't getting the respect and the love as
Yeah.
those franchises, as those employee base, because of taxes and because of what they're claiming. So we got to really educate people to let them understand that one person in a suite or one person as an independent contractor is just as much as a business as a storefront. So we got to get back to the brass tacks and stop looking at the industry as fragmented, and really understand that if this industry is going to stay relevant, if it's going to continue to be in the multi-billion-dollar industry that it is, we're going to have to respect those that are coming in and not look at it, quote unquote, as a slave mentality. You want everybody to be an employee, and you look aside for those who are independently contracted and are creating their own destiny in their own lane. I think that that's what it's been about. And I think sometimes when you think about it from that perspective, you got to come back to the real basis and the foundation of where the industry started, and that's artistic values. But you also have to teach these licensed professionals who decided to go in their own lane. You got to teach them the business from behind the chair, and those are the things that I'm going to bring to the board so that they can understand how important it is for this industry to continue to flourish.
Yeah. He's a fighter, you know that, Brandon. If I want anyone on my team, it's this one right here.
That's right. And if there's one industry that can really and truly benefit from technological advances, it's the quote unquote gig economy, right? Yeah. Those contract workers who are generally seeing higher turnover. I'd like to make a slight pivot into Marina, who has a very unique perspective for this panel, in the sense that you both represent the quote unquote larger agencies in a Roar sense, who may have had their own doldrums as it pertains to the COVID pandemic, as whether it be clientele or your own head count. But then also with your clientele, you represent a wide array. I think we had a conversation both, not only are you all in the hospitality industry, which was obviously shut down entirely for a while and made difficult to advertise for some of those brands, like I think the Royal Caribbean or someone, cruise line that you may service. And then at the same time, those businesses like a mall complex or the bid association, I think that you mentioned down there. Talk to us a little bit about the unique vantage points that you have from both of those sides.
Thanks, Brandon. Yeah, and as you mentioned, we located in Miami, having clients like Royal Caribbean, we before COVID had really made a strategic business development decision. Let's focus on the travel and hospitality industry. We have the knowledge, whether that's from a branding perspective or from an e-commerce perspective. We know that we can help, the travel and hospitality industry. And then everything kind of happened. And we still have had successes in the travel and hospitality industry. Actually, we just signed on a new hotelier in the Dominican Republic and Mexico, and we are seeing successes already there in the first couple of days of those campaigns. But when everything hit with COVID, we really had to reevaluate ourselves in terms of our existing knowledge from a Roar sense, right? Because we've been in business for over 10 years at this point. So we've had a lot of experience across different industries, whether that was lead generations, consumer products, e-commerce as well. And then we kind of look to, the individual employees. With my experience before coming to Roar was strictly retail e-commerce, working with Victoria's Secret and Vistaprint and so on. So we really kind of identified, what are the industries that, from a business development standpoint, we really should be looking into. And we did start to pursue more lead generation, more CPG consumer products, because we know that those were industries that still really needed our support, and there was an immediate need, right? They didn't have that financial impact that the travel and hospitality industry did have, at the beginning of COVID. But going back, I guess, to what you were asking, Brandon, related to the malls and the business improvement district is kind of a subset of a city that focuses on, I think they have about 180 or so retailers in downtown Coral Gables that they service. So anything from a mall, anything from a restaurant to retailers, they might have other small businesses. And so really, these types of clients, we've had them for, years. And, once COVID happened, we really had to reevaluate our relationship. We had a statement of work that was signed, but at the end of the day, our clients needed us in ways that we had never really anticipated before. And what was really great about working at Roar is that not only do we have the digital marketing side, which is what me and my department handle, we also have a public relations side, right? Because you know, we, from a COVID standpoint with Black Lives Matters, I mean, there was a lot of crisis management that a lot of brands had to take into consideration when it came to, you know, their content strategy, when it came to being insensitive to, you know, certain types of advertising. And so we really kind of put our hats together in terms of the different departments to make sure that we were servicing our clients in the best way possible. And like you guys were saying before, location is really the most important thing, because some of our clients did cut budgets, others increased their budgets. It really depended on the size of the business. And it didn't matter the budget that our clients wanted us to move forward with. We needed to make sure that we had the best strategy put in place for them. And unless we can target by location, you're never going to really be able to target that specific, you know, target audience that you're looking for in that moment.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And what I think is really interesting and intriguing is that you all made a strategic business decision to support an industry that was probably the most hard hit by COVID as a result of the pandemic. And therefore, not only does your expertise as a digital marketer, an email marketer in a former life and different role, right, come into play, but then the unique vantage points that you're able to offer maybe to some of those businesses who are not so technology savvy. Right. If I'm thinking of a bid, and for those, the business improvement district can be comprised of a lot of different types of business, right? I think you kind of led to the fact that this could be anywhere from a restaurant to a barbershop or salon, right, to an appliance store. So the access to technology is not one that is always readily accessible for a mom and pop who may have had that business for 25 years on the street. So whether it's the organizational body like a bid, who makes those decisions as it pertains to marketing and driving commerce for them as a whole, or that unique business themselves educating themselves on technology, et cetera. And then speaking of educating on technology, Devon and I had an interesting meeting when we originally kind of crossed paths, and that was in, I think, 2017 at Afrotech conference. And Devon, your industry, or those customers that you serve, is one that has really adapted well to technology. And I'm speaking and referring to the media distribution arm that is Blue Magazine. Digital content is everything right now, right? We are pretty much creating for digital and then converting to print, et cetera, after the fact. Talk to us about your path to technological education and understanding, Devon, being a small business owner, kind of growing your shop from the ground up. What got you interested? What inspired you to show up at an Afrotech, and how has your knowledge kind of influenced how you use technology today?
Well, thank you for that tough question. So I think one of the main things that I had to do was dive into the ecosystem, right, and figure out the terminology, right? So going to these conferences, watching webinars, and participating as much as I could to really understand what people were talking about, right? So whether that's, you know, location-based marketing or, you know, engagement on social versus on your website, and mobile versus digital, these are things that we didn't have to deal with at first because we were print first, right? So our main distribution channel, which is interesting to be on a panel with Share, is that we distribute about 3,000 barbershops across the country. Because it was very hard for us as a small media company to get distribution nationally. So we have both now, but in the beginning, we just had these barbershops. And our audience, which is a diverse, primarily Black, millennial audience, they're the most engaged on social platforms, right? That's the most sought after audience that there is. So we're reaching them not in the digital space, we're reaching them in the physical space, but then we needed to use that and figure out where we can find them for our digital point of view, right? So it wasn't about just wasting money. We didn't have money to waste. We had to really research and understand who our customer was and what they liked and where they were. So whether on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or any other new social platform, we use Ground Truth as data points around our barbershops, right? So just to break down how we got to know who our audience and how we found them. We use Ground Truth to isolate the location that we distribute the magazine at, right? And we use that data to find out what the likes and desires of that audience were, like where they go to shop, what did they respond to, what did they buy, what were they doing on Saturday versus on Wednesday. And then we were able to take our content without even making new content, right? We already had content we've created over 10 years, and then put that in a digital form and feed that to them and get proper feedback on what they liked and didn't like. So as we did new content, we did new content around what our audience wanted to see, right? So I think before we were like super wealthy, we would have just done a bunch of stuff, wasted a bunch of money, and sold stuff. Instead, we actually used what we already had existing on our platform, measured what people liked, and then fed that back to them with digital content. And these things, I probably would not even have made that statement 2 years ago because I wouldn't even know how to make that statement, right? So you have to be fast and adaptive as a small business owner in general. Again, we are a traditional media company and we still say we lead with print first. It's very important for us to show Black people in print. You can touch it, you can feel it, you can rip it out, you can put it up on your wall. And it's very important for us, but we also know that digital will drive our audience to that physical product. So using these type of social platforms to measure their engagement and where they are has been very beneficial for us.
If I may, Brandon, before you start, want to underscore what Devon just said. You know, the affinity that came with the affinity analytics that came with the relationship with Ground Truth was also super important for SheerShare as we continue to build out, you know, our database of users and get to them, right? Like they're on their mobile devices. So how can we, sorry, what'd you say?
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, baby. So we're trying to meet them where they are, right? Which is on their mobile phones. And so, you know, having that affinity analytics in the background to tell us, you know, they also like XYZ or they also like XYZ. And that was extremely helpful because then when we're thinking about different ad creative, that helped to spin up some ideas for us creating these marketing pillars, right? And so based on location-based ads, we had different pillars that we would talk to for our users based on those affinity metrics. And so that was something that Devon pointed out that I also wanted to underscore.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. That context is super helpful, Devon. Thank you for, I mean, you knocked the question out of the park. It didn't really seem difficult at all. And I tried to make it compound. The one thing I wanted to remind our listeners and our audience, we are taking questions. If you do have any question whatsoever, feel free to post it in the Zoom or respond to the email address that forwarded you the invite as well. And I apologize, it completely slipped my mind in all the excitement. Least we forget, there is an offering of 1 million free impressions for one lucky attendee today. So for those of you who are on Facebook, those of you who joined in and signed up for the Zoom, who might be listening to this recording, you actually missed out. But thank you for those of you who are joining us live. We are going to be giving away those impressions. So thank you for listening in and joining us. Again, please shoot your questions and we would gladly take those in the next 5 or 10 minutes as we begin to wrap up. One thing that I wanted to also mention as we make our way into now the platform, right? So let's begin to talk more about, and I appreciate the way that you really excellently kind of brought us into the conversation, Devon, on Ads Manager, that is Ground Truth's platform. Talk to us about some of those things that you've learned, Marina. I appreciate, Courtney, the additions that you've already given us here.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, you know, Ground Truth, especially from a location standpoint, and not only targeting specific locations, but also in being able to track foot traffic. That's really the differentiator for Ground Truth for Roar Media compared to any other advertising platform out there. And, you know, an example I can give is we have a couple of CBD clients that not only do we support their consumer goods business, meaning, you know, if they're at CVS, if they're at you know, Walmart and so on, we'll support that line of business. We'll also support their e-commerce side of the business as well. And it doesn't matter the side of the business, we've been able to leverage Ground Truth's platform to really be able to drive results. If we focus on the consumer product side of the business, I mean, if you think about it, you know, us as the small brand, we're working with a big conglomerate like CVS, Walgreens. You know, they're not always going to share data with us. You know, they're not always going to share in real time what's the revenue, what are the sales like for those products. And so as a marketer, it's really difficult for me to be able to make informed decisions if I don't understand what revenue is it that we're actually generating for the client. And so that's really where the foot traffic piece comes into play and has been really successful for a lot of our campaigns because we've been able to not only understand, okay, we're showing this ad to this person based off of their behavior, meaning okay, the CBD skincare, that's one of the clients, right? We understand, based off of the research that we've done prior to Ground Truth, we understand that these are people that might love, natural products. They're looking to, this is their skincare. They're looking not to age, right? There's so many different factors of what that person might actually be. And so we make an assumption, right? Our best guess, we put it into the platform. And then we start to see, okay, this person or this particular audience is actually driving 10x more visits to CVS after they see one of our ads than this other particular audience. One of the things that we learned was, when you think about skincare, you think women, right? There was actually one point in time during our campaign that it was more men that were actually driving, foot traffic to CVS for this particular client. And so, it's not always about the behavior. It's kind of understanding the demographic and understanding, what are those KPIs? Because again, we're an agency, right? So I need to make sure that I understand what my client's goals are and how we're going to be able to help them achieve it. And so that's kind of, the different ways that we look at the data to be able to make sure that, we are making an impact and we are, ensuring that the campaigns that they're running with us are long-term, profitable for the business.
Super helpful, thank you. To elaborate on the same point, I'll kick it over to Devon first and then Courtney and Ty, if you would. I'm curious to know, from an insights perspective, what kind of value are you getting from some of the other data that you leverage versus the data that and insights that you've gained from a Ground Truth? And what would continue to help you move the needle?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting, right? So all your social platforms have measurement tools, right? And your website has measurement tools. And that kind of goes on this whole behavior side, right? So I know what time they're on, how engaged they are on social, or 85 desktop, or 65 digital or mobile. But I don't necessarily know what they like outside of the time they're spending on my platform. So a platform like Ground Truth allows me to take that consumer, I know who they are with me, and it helps me figure out how do I go after other advertising partnerships, events, et cetera, through their other likes. So like on my own measurement, I know what they like about blue, but I don't know what they're doing on Saturday afternoon. And Ground Truth helps me find out what they're doing on Saturday afternoon. And I can go to whether it's a Home Depot or a Chick-fil-A or whoever and say, hey, my audience, that you may not even know they do this. They get their haircut on Saturday at 1 o'clock, and at 2:30, they're at Chick-fil-A, and at 4 p.m., they're at Home Depot. Right, so that's the sort of thing that Ground Truth helps me do, and I can mirror that with my efforts on social, right? So I know if I want to run ads, and how I want to partner with a third party, I can run those things during those certain time slots that Ground Truth has told me what they're doing. So it's a combination of the two, right? It's not just measuring who my audience is and like their age and those typical demographics. It's also what their likes and interests are.
Awesome. Those who are listening in would have just received a poll. We would appreciate at the end if you could leave some feedback. Thank you so much. Ty and Courtney, the same question.
Yeah, data is so important, right? Data is gold, and especially now, and especially when, like us, we're kind of pioneering this thing. Like before SheerShare, there was no on-demand salon and barbershop space rental app. And so we have the largest database of spaces that you can rent by the day. Again, super important because we're trying to keep our small businesses open in cities all around the world. But some of the data that has been really interesting to us, right, that we're collecting are things that no one ever asked about before, right? So Devon was right on when he said, every analytics platform offers, kind of the same kind of things. When we start to look at the behavior of our user base, so these are the salon and barbershop owners and the independent stylists, right? So your nail technicians, your makeup artists, your estheticians, your barbers, your massage therapists, et cetera, your braiders, of course. Then, how can we better take that data and then spin it back to them so that we're providing a highly personalized platform experience on our mobile app. And so we're now able to look at different areas, right? So like maybe the city of Dallas, and we can see, what is the activation rate of host in that particular region. We can see not only the activation rate of that particular host in that city, but then where do the stylists go after they leave their SheerShare stay, right? After they have their SheerShare stay and they're done with their clients for the day, are they driving by Chick-fil-A? Are they going to Sally's because they use all of their, you know, shampoo and conditioner? And then be able to remind them about the brand in a very contextual way. So it doesn't feel like it's out of pocket or out of context, but that it's just a natural part of their everyday flow. Additional data points are around, you know, how much people are willing to spend on professional salon and barbershop space, and how many days a week are they really working? You know, we're not working 5 and 7 days a week like most people would imagine. And yes, beauty and barbering is the second largest industry for independent contractors and freelancers. And again, because of all that massive data that's available, it's so important for us to be able to understand at the very basic, like nuts and bolts level, the behavior of our share community, and then also be able to spin that out to what are they doing after that share stay is done, or what's the first thing they do when they get up in the morning before they have that share stay. And again, being able to serve them ads, promotions, invitations for content that is in the context of what they already do on a daily basis.
And just to kind of add, I think that that's one of the things that is hard to really measure from this industry perspective, how we behave. We're just so across the board different when it comes to mentality, when it comes to business. So our behavior is just out there. So to use a platform like Ground Truth is almost like a platinum platform to collect all that data, to collect all that energy, to collect all the people's just the behavior, not just from the business, but what are they doing when they step outside, when they go left, when they go right. And so when you think about those things right there, Ground Truth can kind of give you those things and put you in front of the competition. Even if you're a first mover, even if you are a second, third tier from your competitor, they can kind of get you over that next scale and put you in the lead because they have a platform that can give you those data points and that understanding where those other people don't have it.
Can I announce Lloyd's?
You can.
Okay, so one perfect example of how this played out for us, and this is something that you guys are hearing first, is that we were noticing some of the traffic of our share community going to topics around like protection, right? So like insurance and how to best prepare for life after COVID. And so we said, well, like we can do something about that. And so we hit up our friends over at Lloyd's of London across the pond and said, we need to be able to provide professional liability insurance for our stylists, but not how they've been used to consuming that insurance policy. We want you to partner with us to bring something to the industry that has never been done before, and we want you to be able to do it by the day. And so now by the end of this month, beginning of November, when the announcement is official and the ink is dry, stylists will be able to go onto the share platform, rent out a couple of days at a local suite, and be able to also purchase professional liability insurance by the day and feel extremely good about being able to protect not only themselves, but their clients, the equipment, and the space around them. And so again, knowing those like affinity topics and themes, it's game changing.
And why that is important, because, you know, sitting in front of investors, knowing that this industry is so fragmented and there are so many independent contractors, you know, they're going to trust the host. They're going to trust, they're going to trust themselves. But if you and I know, and we know better, when we catch an Uber and we don't like our driver, or we don't like their attitude, or we don't like the car, who do you trust? Do you trust the driver, or do you trust the platform? So it's just one of those things where you can create getting rid of the disintermediation, and you can also now trust your platform more because they care about you from both sides of the marketplace, not just from the driver feeling protected, but also from the consumer feeling protected as a rider. So I think that that's one of those things that where it makes it so easy for people to trust your platform if you're doing it right. And these are all the data points that you have to collect along the way in order to understand your users and their behavior.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point. And thank you also for mentioning the fact that you all had done this as a pivot, as a result of what you've been seeing across your entire consumer base. And this was a service that was added to add value. Similar to, I believe, I don't know if it was earlier this year or last, that you all added a tax service where people can actually do their taxes who leverage the platform.
That's right. That's
story
right.
of innovation. Would love to give you guys a little time, but I did have one more question before we wrap for Marina. And Marina, for those who are listening in, of the 3 of these business representatives that we have, she is the only one who's actually laid hands to keyboard, right? To actually manage her own media. I believe our other partners used another service. Marina, talk to us a little bit about what it took for you to get started. I know that you had a lot of service and help actually activating, but what about cost, on the platform? Was there a mandatory kind of investment? And, how did you see that usability?
Awesome. Yeah. So, at Roar, we really pride ourselves in, being in platform and running campaigns ourselves because, we're an agency, right? So you pay your agency to run campaigns for you. And so, whether it's me or whether it's one of my team members, the first thing that we really do is really understand, obviously, the objectives for our clients, right? And based off of the budget, let's allocate. Okay, should we run ground truth? Should we run Google search? Should we run Facebook, right? There's so many options out there, but we really need to understand, okay, based off the limited budget that we have, how are we really going to move the needle the best based off of that particular client's KPIs? And so, I go back to those CBD brands because, that's where we're really seeing a lot of successes with ground truth because a lot of the KPIs really revolve around supporting the existing retailers. And so one of the things that we really did, before we even get to the platform is we need to understand what are the actual location, the physical locations of where those particular, CBD products are being sold. Once we have those 500, 1,000, 2,000 stores, we'll decide, okay, what's the strategy? Do I want to look at CVS and Walgreens separate? Do I not care? Do I want to look at it together? It really depends on reporting, right? Because it is really valuable for my client to be able to then show CVS, hey, here's your CVS report. These are exactly the number of visits that we drove to your store. So, understanding reporting, how do we want to be looking at the audiences? How do we want to be looking at, the data is going to be really informative in terms of how do we end up setting up the campaign. So,
oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to ask, you ended up getting a decent amount of support despite, having relatively small budgets on some of those brands as you were testing them out, right? I think you were doing, was it $300 and $500 initial campaigns as you began to see what performance looked like for the CBD brands, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And thanks for bringing that up, Brandon, because, at first we didn't know how Ground Truth was going to perform, right? And Ground Truth is, because it's, not a Facebook, not a Google, sometimes it's a little bit harder for me as the intermediary to be able to, explain to a client, hey, you really need to, you really need to go with Ground Truth because they're really going to be the ones to help you meet your KPIs. And so a lot of the times what we do is, okay, since we're doing the self-service platform, it's not a managed service, there really isn't a minimum. So we just go into the platform, we'll test it out, maybe $200, $500. And then once we actually get results, we'll scale to whatever budget we really can allocate. That's typically how we do it with a lot of the different vendors that, are not as part of, the Google Facebooks of the world, because again, Google Facebook is what everybody thinks. If you're not a digital advertiser, those are the two platforms that you automatically think. So, we'll really make sure that we do a testing model. We'll understand, okay, X amount of budget. Let's look at how many visits we drove. What was the cost per visit? Is there any other channel that can get us this cost per visit at this low price? Probably not. Okay, let's put more money into Ground Truth. And then, we already did this research about, who is our target audience? Who are the customer personas that we want to target? And, I've worked, with Brandon, I worked with you and to understand, okay, what is it? What are the targeting capabilities of Ground Truth, right? Because as I was beginning to get onboarded to the account or to Ground Truth, I wasn't really sure what was the full range of possibilities from a targeting standpoint. And so, I would leverage that team that I was assigned from a Ground Truth perspective to make sure that I was making the best use of the platform. But yeah, it was really easy to set it up. Pretty much I just got my creative. We would run mobile ad units. I just set up the campaigns, put the targeting, put the location, and probably within half an hour, boom, the campaigns were live. It was really easy. And then, we would just go in a couple times a week to make sure that we were spending, making sure that we were making optimizations. Some of those optimizations could be, updating those audiences based off of the insights that the team shared, right? There's so much learning. And that's a great thing about digital. That's why I love digital, more so than a lot of traditional advertising is you can look at the data and you can pivot within a minute if you really wanted to. And so Ground Truth really does give you that because it's especially from a location standpoint, right? You know, so you guys mentioned, you know, knowing if they get their coffee shop at 2 p.m., which I have not gotten that granular yet, I have to admit, but you know, for those retailer support, you know, being able to upsell CVS and say, we're going to target people that go to the Walgreens next door to you to try to get them to go to your particular CVS store instead of that Walgreens. You know, that is music to that retailer's ears. So those are kind of the ways that we've kind of positioned Ground Truth, and been able to see a lot of success, because it really is fairly easy. You know, it's very comparable to the Facebooks and the Googles of the world from a user interface standpoint. So it's kind of been a no-brainer for us.
Just a quick jump in real quick. Just to piggyback what Marina just said, it's really important. You can spend a lot of money on market research firms, right? But as a small business, you don't have these budgets to hire someone to dissect your brand. So taking a little bit of time to do these little tests with very little money, a fraction of what you would pay a marketing agency to like research your brand. Digital allows you to do that on your own, and you can be independent in that. So if you do hire someone later on, you have some pre-knowledge of what your audience behavior is. So they can't just take your money and give you a BS report. You can get your knowledge up front before you even hire someone on the third party side. So sorry.
No, that was a very necessary point. Thank you so much, Devon. And I want to extend another warm and professional and sincere and earnest thank you to both Dr. Ty and Courtney Caldwell, as well as you, Marina, my boss, Steve, our president. Thank you all for joining us on Facebook. Those of you who signed up ahead of time to join us and partake in this conversation. We hope very sincerely that this was educational, that it was interesting, that it met your expectations. You'll have the content actually available online. We hope and encourage you to email us at adexpert@groundtruth.com with any questions that you may have. There you could ask for a demo or sign up for our newsletter, and also connect with myself and any other colleagues around just questions that you may have around location technology and digital technology as a whole. I want to thank you and remind everyone to stay tuned to your emails, where you'll find out the lucky winner of the 1 million impression giveaway. That partner will be getting a message from us, and you'll be paired with one of our salespeople at Ground Truth who will help you leverage the best location technology in the business. Again, I want to thank you all. Steve, any sign off?
No, I think this was wonderful. And it was great to see all of these entrepreneurs and other industry professionals and the energy, because that's how we feel. You know, when I hear, I think, was it Ty and Courtney? How you present is how we feel. And so we love a challenge. We love to drive performance. We just love what we do. There's no business too small. Bring it. We'd love to engage.
That's right. Okay, without further ado, thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful start and rest of the week. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks,
Bye,
Brandon.
guys.
Stay safe,
Bye,
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.